Hey everybody, it's Jesty here. We're going to be going over my other 2 rounds of Cameron Heat. I don't want to spend too much time on these because I must say luck did go my way in both of these matches up front, and I did finish 3-0 in case you didn't know already, but we're going to talk about some important moments in these matches, especially where they swung in my favor. So this particular match is Signal Trace against Jageru. He played it very well, and in fact, the first couple turns were very, very scary, and I could have lost my initiative and been on the back foot the entire time. But opening up, this is probably the most important turn of this game. I am able to get an early lead by getting my Mongoose onto the objective with basically 0. So the only thing he really has available to shoot at this Mongoose is his Telos down on the bottom. He's using Vapor's List, by the way. I dropped prone so that the Dragoon and the Rampage would not have line of sight on me. And the other big move to note here on turn 1 was actually Jageru's Hermes coming in for like a 42-point charge onto the hoplite on the back lines. So this thing charged for like 13 or 14 hexes. I don't know exactly off the top of my head how many, but it was basically from over here to here, and it absolutely trucks the hoplite. I end up getting, I think, a gyro hit due to this massive amount of damage. So he's off to a fairly good start early, but I take an early objective lead by, oops, let me clear that out, by getting the objective with the Mongoose. So let's go ahead and pull up the combat logs so we can see exactly how brutal of a charge that was. And this was turn 1 or turn 2? Yeah, it had to be turn 2. This turn 1 was just positioning like it generally always is. So here's the charge from the Hermes. As you can see right here, Defender takes 42 damage. Absolutely disgusting. And he gets the CT critical, no effect. Huh, I thought there would be a crit, but I know I end up taking a gyro crit. There it is. I end up falling, taking a pilot hit. And I know I take a gyro crit from something on attack. Maybe the Dragoon nails me with the Gauss rifle. But this was huge. It was a big opening assault for him. I'm prone with the hoplite, taking significant damage, and I'm susceptible to that Gauss rifle. Now, the very next turn is where it swings into my favor. Unfortunately, he went for the mask 2 turns in a row, and the Hermes just gets... It's not dead outright. It survives for a couple turns, but he fails the mask roll on 5s. So he's no longer really able to do his job. And I'm still prone with the Mongoose here for now. Let's move along. So the objective went to Jageru's side. He gets the objective in the next turn. I think it went into the pig pen, and then after there it goes over to here where the hoplite is. Either way, we're fairly close in objectives, but he's basically down a mech for the most part already. I send my Kentaro to fight his Jackrabbit up in the top, and the Kentaro is a 2-3 skill level, so he's just going to win those trades all day, and he ends up hunting down the Jackrabbit throughout this match. And I end up just using the cover and the buildings to block line of sight from the Gauss rifle of the Dragoon and the LBX and the LRMs from the Rampage from really being effective. So as we continue throughout the match, you can see I end up taking out the Jackrabbit. I still have my Kentaro, my Sling, my Hoplite is still in. He's not looking good. He's definitely roughed up, but he's still mostly intact. The Kudo is untouched. The Shootist has barely even been shot at this whole game. But I'm up in mechs right now. but I did lose the Mongoose going for a cheeky rear shot on the Dragoon, and it did not work out in my favor. He was able to punish me heavily and get rid of the Mongoose. So here we go. We're both making objective rolls, and Jigaru made a very good showing for himself. He ended up with 48 objective points, and we actually kind of got lucky that the objective bounced pretty fairly. It went to his side once, it went to my side once, and then it bounced back and forth between the south solar panel objective and the middle building objective. So as you can see, the shootist is there trying to pick it up. So we didn't have a one-sided RNG portion of this match. So I am now tied with objectives after this turn. And unfortunately, just because I ended up outnumbering him, I was able to whittle down the Rampage and the Dragoon with taking as little damage as I could, which was not zero. The Telos didn't really do that much, unfortunately. He missed most of his shots. If he would have just connected better, he could have made a better showing for himself. But by the end of the match, let's go and see. So I get rid of the Dragoon, and all he has left is the Rampage. By the end of the match, he ends up getting both my Shootist, my Kentaro, and my Kudo all in force withdrawal. So he not only got almost all the objective points, but I think he almost maxed out his combat score as well, because he ended up destroying a mech and then putting 3 mechs into force withdrawal. So even though it was a loss for him, it was a very high point loss. So let's go ahead and pull up that combat log again real quick. Whoops, that's the wrong button. There we go. And we can see some of the more nonsensical stuff that happened. So he ends up actually killing the Kentaro because I didn't realize that. So I think he did actually max out his combat score. So he ends up getting the Kentaro kill because I didn't realize I was so high in heat that I was rolling on the ammo explosion table on like 10s or something. And I ended up blowing myself up. See, there we go. Takes 3 pilot hits on the Kentaro. Destroyed by ejection due to taking too many pilot hits from ammo explosions. So he ended up making a really good showing for himself. It was just that one bad luck of missing the mask on that Hermes that kind of did in the match for him. He was positioning well. He was using the terrain well. I just had more ranged firepower than he did across my list and was able to take a little bit more losses without punishment because that Hermes basically killed itself with that mask failure. So in my next match, I actually played against Trailblazer, who is of YouTube fame. He's been making a lot of videos, and I think he's been streaming on occasion, or maybe that's Many Voices that's been streaming. But either way, he makes some quality YouTube videos, so check him out if you are watching me for some reason and not watching him. So we're playing Breakthrough. Basically, he needs to get all of his, or at least 4 of his units off my starting edge, and I need to get 4 of my units off his starting edge. Unfortunately for me, he's got 4 very fast units that I can basically do nothing to stop. My only chance is to take pot shots as they fly by me through the middle and focus down the Stalker and the Wolverine once I get past this midpoint, because his Stalker is basically the slowest mech on the map, so there's no way it's getting off the map before I do, and the Wolverine is going to stick around to be its muscle. At least that's the strategy I'm assuming he's going for in these opening turns, and that's basically what I would do had I his list. But he decides to actually go for some combat score, which, to his credit, he does pick up some combat score here early. So I get a little brave with the sling. I get him into close range with that lightning attack hovercraft, which I should not have done because it has pulse lasers. And I get to the rear arc of the Spectre, and I think we're on the same elevation. Yeah, we're both on level 2 along this ridge. So I'm in a position to kick it. This Spectre has like chameleon polarization and null sig or void signature, whatever. it's extremely hard to hit, even at short range, because it's A, jumping for a buttload, B, has stealth nonsense, and C, my gunnery and piloting are not that great. And I'm jumping in order to just get into short range. I'm having to run to get into short range with just a large laser or an LRM or whatever to try and take a decent shot at him, because I can't see the lightning with anything but the sling, which only has LRM 5s, and the mongoose, which I think is right here. Yeah, it's the mongoose. I can't see the J. Edgar. It's over here. I mean, I can physically see it, but I can't shoot at it because it's behind level 1 and it's got a ridiculous TMM. His mongoose is out of range and line of sight for most of my units. Well, actually just range, because he's up on the level 1 hill. And the Wolverine is also out of range. So my only shots are basically on the Spectre, which, as you can imagine, completely whiff. I think I hit it once, maybe, with like something pitiful, like a LRM 5 that doesn't even do 5 damage. I basically spend 2 turns unloading into the Spectre and getting nothing for it. And the lightning attack hovercraft nails my sling with his pulse lasers, and he's already in force withdrawal. So A, he's easily going to win the objectives, or at least complete the objective before me. B, he's already up on combat score because he's got my sling crippled. And C, I've got to stare down this disgusting stalker in a hope that I can trade with it better with my 4 mechs than he can with his 2 or 3 mechs that he keeps behind. And I'm in a bad spot as of right this second. So I don't have very good shots. I'm taking what shots I can here and there, trying to keep the sling alive. But as you can see here, let me pull up the pen. There's a squish here and there's a squish here. I got a super lucky headshot with I think a large laser or something from the shootist into the stalker, or maybe it was the hoplite or a PPC from the hoplite. Either way, I got super lucky, hit the head, and then killed the pilot on the crit. Yeah, it had to be the PPC. That's the only thing that does enough damage to penetrate the armor and not outright destroy the cockpit on my list anyway. And it completely changed the dynamic of the fight, because not only are we now tied in combat, but B, I'm more than likely going to be able to kill something else and win the combat and get off with the majority of my units. The Kudo is taking some hits. It's basically combat ineffective at this point. I lost one of my arms, and my other arm has like a shoulder crit and a lower or upper arm actuator crit. So I'm basically at like +3 or 4 to all my shots with a large laser, and it's almost not even worth shooting the majority of the rest of this match. But instead of taking the easy objective win and calling it a tie, because at this point, his sling kill and the kill on the stalker are worth exactly the same as far as I can tell, he decides to go for more points and tries to brawl and go into the rear of the shootist with the Wolverine and the lightning attack hovercraft. And I just converge onto the Wolverine and the lightning. So I've got a lot of long range firepower, but I do have a decent brawler in the shootist and a decent brawler in the Kentaro. He's got a lot of TMM with the Mongoose, the J. Edgar, the Spectre, and the lightning attack hovercraft. But that Wolverine doesn't have the same survivability, or I should say evasiveness, that the other mechs have. And I'm going to get 3 kicks on him this turn, which is huge. For me anyway. Eventually, he does fall. He ends up using, I think, Careful Stand. This is the next round. So just that one crit completely changed the dynamic of the fight and forced him into an awkward spot to try and get as many points as he can. Something that should have been a fairly easy match for this matchup versus my list ended up becoming a really, really technical scrum. So he's getting in the rear of the shootist, trying to take it out, which will significantly hinder my ability to fight back because the Kudo is basically combat ineffective, so I'm down that unit for the most part. The Mongoose is fast, the Kintaro is dangerous, and the Hoplite can't really do anything against anything point blank against it within 1 or 2 hexes. It does have the PPC, but it's not great. So he's definitely in a position to where he can threaten the Shootist, or at least try and threaten the Kudo to take it out, or put it in force withdrawal. But he's going to trade out the Wolverine and maybe some hits on something else for it if I get lucky. Because I'm having to hit on like 10s and 11s, except for the Wolverine. But everything else on his list is almost impossible for me to hit. And the Wolverine does eventually go down. The Shootist is in force withdrawal, so he does at least get the points for crippling it. But he ends up getting away with the Spectre, and I end up getting off with 4 mechs, the Kudo, the Hoplite, the Kintaro, and the Mongoose. And I end up chasing him down, or trying to chase him down with the Shootist. I end up winning the duel with the Lightning Attack Hovercraft, who was in my rear for almost the entire last half of the match. And I take one last parting shot at the Spectre as it jumps toward the edge of the map. So, unfortunately, he had some really bad luck with that headshot taking out his Stalker on like turn 3 or 4. But he was in a position to win the match until that RNG came into my favor. And once it did, he was in a really bad position because he didn't really have the brawling potential. He had to rely on his TMM to keep him alive. He couldn't just sit there and slug it out with that Shootist because it was going to win versus the Spectre or the Lightning Attack Hovercraft or the J. Edgar. And he kept the J. Edgar back and refused to really show it until the very end of the match, which I think was a good idea. Same with his Mongoose. He kept that out of the scrum for the most part because they're arguably more vulnerable than the Lightning and the Spectre. While I tried to bully that Wolverine that got left behind. But yeah, here, let's see if we can find that crit on the Stalker. There's an ER large. Where's the Hoplite? Pretty sure he's the one who did it. Yep, there it is. Hoplite. PPC. Needs 11s. Rolls 12. Hits the head. 2 structure remaining. Critical hit. 12. Head blown off. So I didn't even kill the pilot. Just completely blew off his head, which in turn kills the pilot. So I got pretty lucky. I rolled 12 basically twice in a row and killed a mech outright. Which, by all means, there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's going to happen to you. And he still made a really good showing for this match. I think he scored almost max points, just missing a little bit on combat, but he maxed out the objective score, as did I. Even though he was still favored based on the units, even though I got lucky with that headshot, I was anticipating that I would have taken out that Stalker, but I probably would have lost the Kudo and the Shootist in the process, for sure. If not, maybe one more mech. And I assumed I would have been able to get off with at least 3 mechs to max out my objective score by killing the Stalker and possibly the Wolverine. And it would have ended up being a tie if that were the case, because he would have definitely gotten off with the J. Edgar, Lightning, Mongoose, and Spectre, and just tried to kill as much as he could with the Stalker and the Wolverine, while poking my rear with the other 4 units on his list. But because he lost like the majority of his firepower, it made it so that I had a chance to brawl successfully without much threat. But so I got the Hoplite off unscathed. The Kintaro barely got scratched. The Kudo was not quite in force withdrawal, but he was mostly combat ineffective, and the Mongoose was basically unscratched. All he did was kill the Sling and get the Shootist into force withdrawal by getting, I think, engine crits from the rear arc. I think I still had a significant amount of front armor left. But he put up a good showing, and he ended up tying or winning first with Many Voices, who he swapped lists with. So he did really well overall, and so did many voices. They both performed extremely well. He just took a slight loss. I think he had like an 83-point loss, which is ridiculous. I had a 50-point win, to be fair. So he did very well, and I'd like to thank Sam and PS359 and Forrester for helping to run the event and doing everything they do with their spreadsheets and tournament organization knowledge. Thanks, guys. We appreciate everything that you do, and I hope to see you guys in Kerensky Heat, which actually just got dropped right now as of like 20 minutes ago. So go ahead and sign up for Kerensky Heat and get in on the next round of MRC action. My little 5K3U is actually just going to start tomorrow. Yesterday was technically the last day to submit, but I'm a lenient GM or TO. I'm gonna let you submit a little late. So that's going to be kicking off. So hopefully I can get some footage of some of those matches. I'm hoping to adapt the format primarily for tabletop play, and if possible, make it interesting for Megamech as well. So that does it for me today. I hope everybody has a good one out there. Good night, everybody.